This is Marmite, my Kenyan Sand Boa, and we are going to tell you exactly how to set up a Kenyan Sand Boa enclosure. Hi everyone, I'm Ellie from Ellie's Exotics, and I currently have a cold, so I do apologise if I sound a little bit nasally, but I'm feeling all good and I really wanted to get this video to you because I've had many requests about how to set up a Kenyan Sand Boa enclosure. I have had Marmite for just under 2 years, which is crazy for me to think about because this little guy is not much bigger than when I first got him. And in those last 2 years, I've put a lot of effort into researching Kenyan Sand Boas and also seeing how Marmite reacts to different setups. Kenyan Sand Boas do make good pets, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend them to a first-time owner because I have had issues with him eating. Not because of husbandry related things, but just because of how shy they are. So that's something to consider before getting a Kenyan Sand Boa. But if that isn't going to put you off and you already have experience with snakes that have gone off food, then let's get right into the video and let's set up his enclosure. For enclosure size itself, Marmite is in a 45 by 45 low Exoterra. I recommend the lows over the standard size because it means that the heat bulb is closer to the snake itself, and especially if you live in cold places like England, that works out a lot better for the snake's digestion rate. A male Kenyan Sand Boa should be able to live in this size enclosure for 3 to 4 years, or sometimes even longer because of how slow growing they are. But an adult, you're looking at anywhere from a 60 by 45 for a male, or a 90 by 45 for a female. If you can go bigger, then that can be better, but like I said, these guys are incredibly shy and Marmite does not like many changes to his enclosure, so I try and limit enclosure revamps or upgrades as much as possible. For substrate, I like to use a 60% topsoil and 40% play sand mix. This is the most natural thing that you can use for your Kenyan Sand Boa. I see so many people keeping their Kenyan Sand Boas on aspen, on lignocell. While it might work, it is not what is best for your animal. Kenyan Sand Boas are from Kenya, and believe it or not, it does actually rain in Kenya. It's not dry constantly, which means misting your Kenyan Sand Boa is beneficial. And I found that if you are having issues with eating, it could actually be a humidity problem. Humidity should be around 60%, and it can even go all the way up to 80%. Now, they shouldn't be kept at 80% humidity at all times, but I like to mist Marmite on a Friday just before I feed him because that's when Kenyan Sand Boas would naturally come out of the soil. After he's been sprayed, he'll come above the surface and look for food, just like he would in the wild. So that's why aspen and lignocell aren't really appropriate options because they do mold when they're wet. You will have a much better time and a much healthier animal using topsoil and play sand. Make sure you're using organic topsoil that doesn't have any fertilizers in it so that your snake might possibly get ill. Now, as for decor inside of the enclosure, you want to provide lots of different types of clutter and also hides. One of my favourite types of hides is an underground hide. This is something that they would naturally find in the wild because of different rock crevices or rock structures that they might encounter. An underground hide is also a great way to feed a picky Kenyan Sand Boa because instead of leaving the food on the surface, you can bury that hide, put the pinky inside, and your Kenyan Sand Boa can go and find it itself. I like to provide 3 different types of hides at a minimum, but Marmite has around 5. Each hide is slightly buried underneath the substrate so that he gets different textures when he's moving around. It also helps with shedding, as he can rub his little nose to start his shed underneath the substrate rather than coming to the surface. When providing clutter, provide it close to the heat bulb. I like to put a plant just near the heat bulb in case they've just had a meal and they're needing that extra boost of heat, but they're a bit too shy to come up. As for heating, Kenyan Sand Boas need overhead heating to thrive. If we're talking their natural habitat, there are no heat mats underground. In fact, Kenyan Sand Boas will bury themselves to get away from the heat. And it's common for Kenyan sand boas to get burns on their body from these heat mats, because Kenyan sand boas will choose a comfortable spot where they feel safe and secure over properly heating or cooling themselves down. I provide a 75-watt heat bulb in Marmite's enclosure, and it is a halogen bulb. Make sure your heating is connected to a thermostat. For a halogen bulb, you will want a dimming thermostat, not an on and off stat, a mini stat, or a mat stat. All thermostats do slightly different things, so make sure when you are buying your thermostat, you are specifically getting the dimming thermostat. Otherwise, your bulbs will flick on and off and it will cause them to blow earlier, and it also might mean that they're not getting the right temperatures. Your thermostat will come with a probe. Place the probe 3 inches away from the basking spot. This is so the probe gets an accurate reading and your enclosure isn't overheating. I also provide him UVB. While they are a fossorial species, Kenyan sand boas can and will benefit from UVB. He has a 7% unit, and I've found his colour difference since moving him in with UVB has been drastic. His colours pop more and he is also a lot more active. I don't know if there is a correlation between this and UVB, but he also started to eat a lot more regularly, but that could be just because he was getting used to his setup by then. And the last important topic is water and water bowls. Your water bowl should be shallow and small. Large water bowls and deep water bowls can cause a problem with Kenyan sand boas, as they aren't the smartest little guys. In large water bowls, Kenyan sand boas can drown very, very quickly. So I use a tiny little trinket bowl that I got from B&M Bargains, and it works perfectly for him. I fill it up about halfway, and when he was smaller, I actually used to put pebbles at the bottom of his water bowl, and that's so he had something to grip onto better. So if he did fall into his water bowl, then he would have an easier time getting out. Okay, and that is everything for today, guys. Marmite has been a very good boy, and just look at how tiny and cute he is. I do really recommend Kenyan sand boas, but like I said, they can be a bit of a pain. But nonetheless, I still love him, and I'm so glad that I got him those couple years ago, and I really hope you enjoy keeping your Kenyan sand boa too. Please make sure you like and you subscribe and comment down below what you are going to call your Kenyan sand boa. I will see you all later. Bye bye.